Fahd Al-Rasheed, great to see you at the Milken Global Conference. You are the Group CEO, Managing Director of the King Abdallah Economic City. Nice to see you here.
Thank you for having me.
And a brief explanation, basically what you are trying to do is develop cities in Saudi Arabia and generate some economic activity. Let's talk commodities first, falling oil prices. How has that impacted your efforts in development?
Well, it has, King Abdallah Economic City is fully private. The government does not own anything in it. We are listed on Saudi Stock Exchange. And so we were built for a moment where oil prices are not so high and where the private sector is needed for the development of the country. And today the government aims to increase actually percentage of private sector participation from 40% to 60% of GDP.
So the falling oil prices haven't impacted those private sector investors either?
Not as much, no, not as much as people expect, because we have been doing this for now 10 years and we have not depended on government funding. We have a port now that's 3 million containers going to 4 million container capacity at the end of this year. We are attracted 110 companies from all over the world, and we are the largest private sector developer of residential now in the country, and we see demand actually, because we're based on fundamentals, we see the demand going forward to be very healthy.
Where are most of your private investors from? Where have you had the best response, I guess, if you will, from investors?
Well, globally we've had a lot of companies from Europe, but also some from the US, like Pfizer or Johnson Controls or Mars. And so we find Europe and the US to be the biggest area, but also we're going now more and more to China.
And any issues in China in terms of, there's some concern about China's economy slowing. You're not seeing that, I was.
Well, obviously it's slowing from a pace of growth that was unbelievable, but
Sure.
also the base now of the economy. So when they're growing at 7% at the size of GDP that they have, that's really impressive. What we're trying to do is to launch a whole new economic region, actually. So what we are now promoting is the Red Sea region. It's the 23 countries around the Red Sea. That's the next emerging market. 620 million people today, going to 1.3 billion. So we're saying that King Abdallah Economic City will be the hub for manufacturing of the region.
And are you seeing US manufacturers as well? You mentioned a few companies.
Yes, yes.
In terms of names or amount, how broad of a base are you seeing?
It is across many sectors, so Mars in FMG, in foods and manufacturing, Pfizer in pharmaceuticals, but also Johnson Controls. So we see across the board in different sectors.
What's the biggest hurdle you've faced so far?
Well, it was learning how to do this. It's never been done before. Nobody's done a city at this scale, the size of Washington, D.C., for 2 million people from scratch. So figuring out the business model, being a listed entity made it a bit tougher. And of course, the financial crisis of 2008 did not help. But now we are doing very well, growing at 20 to 30% every year. So it's a very, very good environment for us.
Would you ever consider expanding your listing?
Well, we are now more and more focused on debt. We believe we are under leveraged for an infrastructure project, so we're not as much going after equity, but more like foreign investment in manufacturing or debt for our development activities. We have the most liquidity we've ever had right now, actually.
How will the new sovereign wealth fund that's being announced by the government impact you in any way? Does it help your private investors? Will you see money directly?
Well, we think that this sovereign wealth fund is going to be a very, very important component of our development going forward. Most of its ownership is going to be in the oil industry at the beginning, with Aramco being added to it, but over time it will diversify. But we think that the government will start buying assets and companies abroad, and some of them will want to have a base in Saudi Arabia, and we will be the best place for them to be. Especially automotive manufacturing. I think this is the next big way for Saudi Arabia, with focus on logistics.
Have you tried to court any of the US automakers or European automakers to come?
No, we're now talking to everybody. We just started looking at the sector. Volvo does some assembly, but we're talking about no more broader set, all of the producers of all of the components. And they need a major market like ours for them to establish a manufacturing facility. So we're having lots of negotiations.
President Obama recently visiting the region. Was there any potential positive fallout from that? I know some of the headlines said there was some tension, and I think politically there's always going to be some issues, but economically, was there any benefit from that visit?
I think the US-Saudi relationship on trade, the people-to-people relationship has always been strong. government have always been strong. So I think the visit just reaffirmed this. And if there is any disagreement on the way forward on foreign policy in the region, it was just sorted out. The politicians sorted out, and the business people do their business. So we're okay.
One final question on the business front. What about technology companies? Have you seen any US-based technology companies express interest, or other companies that can really probably set up and utilize a labor force, especially when we're seeing such growth in that particular sector?
Well, I think in the next frontier of technology is going to be how to smarten cities. People talk about smart cities, but it's really they're really now investing significantly in this area, from building management systems to transport to security, etc. We are looking at all of it and talking to every company literally that is in this space, because we believe we have a greenfield opportunity that we can actually leapfrog with technology the future and deliver the future of cities.
Fahd Al-Rasheed, nice to speak with you here.
Thank you for hosting.